Let's dive into the discussions shaping the nation.
Taoiseach, I want to return to an issue I raised with you yesterday, the crisis in special education. Last Friday, I joined a group of 50 parents, children and family members who had to resort to a 24-hour sleep-out in front of the Department of Education here in Dublin in order to highlight the crisis that they are experiencing. And I heard harrowing stories of experiences from desperate parents, frustrated, in despair at the battle they had had on behalf of their children. One mother who told me of the long waiting list to achieve an assessment of need for her 3-year-old daughter, and a grandmother who told me about her daughter's battle to get a place in a special school for her son, who's 6 years old. I know a march will take place in Cork City this weekend protesting at the same issue, because this is a nationwide crisis, and we in Labour offer our full support and solidarity, as I know we all do, with those families in these situations. Taoiseach, securing a diagnosis through the public system for children takes years, and even achieving a diagnosis is no longer the answer it once was, because access to therapies and to the necessary treatments and to school places is so difficult. Yesterday I asked you how you would ensure that every child who needs them would have access to a school place or to therapy. And I asked when the 14,000 children now waiting for an assessment of need would be seen. In response, you said, we are working to see if we can ensure places for children next September, which is not exactly a wrought iron guarantee. And Taoiseach, I'd like to give you the opportunity today to say something more substantive on this, because every year we hear these watery commitments, but every year when the school year draws close, parents are left scrambling because there's no place for their precious child. A child's right to education is protected by the Constitution, but at least 118 children with additional needs have not received an offer of a school place anywhere this year. And we know that many, many more have had to take up inappropriate places, or indeed have had to be bussed out of their communities because there's nowhere local to go. In addition, the Journal reports that 1,274 children were moved to reduced school days in the last school year. And of that group, more than 80% of primary school pupils had special educational needs. So Taoiseach, families need to hear from you how you will achieve access to places for their children come this September, and in particular to reassure them that there will be enough staff in place to meet the level of need. Yesterday my colleague Deputy Owen Kenny asked you if the Department of Education had a recruitment freeze on SNAs, on special needs assistants, because we've received multiple reports indicating that this is the case. School principals being informed that they cannot have an SNA sanctioned for their school because it seems that the department has outlined new SNA positions will not be filled until September at the earliest. And one school we know of which has been refused a second special educational needs room despite having a classroom lying empty, the principal suspecting because the department does not want to pay for staff. So Taoiseach, is there a de facto recruitment freeze on SNAs? And if not, how can the department justify delays and refusals? And I'll ask you again, when will every child have access to the school places and therapies they need?
Respond. First of all, I thank the Deputy for raising this issue because it is a very, very important issue, and one that I'm determined to deal with in the short term and to ensure that there's a proper system in the years to come whereby parents will know in the previous academic year where their child will be attending the following, the second level for the subsequent academic year. Parents are going through too much in terms of endeavouring to find a school place, or in terms of navigating the therapy support services that children require. If I could just deal with the school places initially. First of all, the population growth in children with special needs is growing very significantly. Funding has increased significantly. Additionality in places, teachers and SNAs has increased dramatically. That's no comfort or consolation to those parents who don't have a place or don't have access. But it needs to be said, because we've established about 11 new special schools since 2020. It's the first government in a long time that began again to establish new special schools. There had been moves against special schools, from ideological reasons, and people felt that maybe the more mainstream the better. But that stopped. The last couple of years we've increased, and there's been 11 established since 2020. 5 more special schools are open this coming school year. Now, I've spoken to the NCCA, I've spoken to Minister Moynihan, who's also been in touch with ETB and the NCSE. There are problems in Dublin North, Dublin South, Cork County, There could be other problems outside of those areas, but there are particular issues in those locations. And suffice to say, we will have to increase the number of special schools and special classes as well. There will be 400 extra special classes that will come on board in the school year 2025-2026. 218 have already been sanctioned in the last week alone, and more will follow imminently. Staffing has increased by 27% since 2020. There are now 23,400 special needs assistants. There is no freeze on recruitment of SNAs. That's an increase, by the way, of 32% since 2020. And we have 20,800 special education teachers. That's an increase of 22,000 since 2020. But that in itself, I acknowledge, is poor consolation to those who don't have a school place. So we're going to work flat out to ensure and to do everything we possibly can to create spaces, create new special schools between now and the end of this academic year to prepare for children coming in next September. And no effort will be spared in securing places for children who currently have not been who was not identified, or a place has not been identified for them. On the assessment of need, I have said earlier, we're looking at the legislative framework now. We're going to have to bring legislation to deal with the issue around assessment of need.
Deputy Ivana Bacik.
Taoiseach, I thank you for the response, and I thank you for saying so clearly there is no freeze on SNAs. I have to say that is at odds with the experience reported to us by principals, and I would welcome perhaps a more detailed written response from you on that, because we're told there is some directive from the department that amounts to an obstacle or blockage to the hiring of SNAs that are needed by principals. And I think we all accept demographic change, but clearly there is such a lack of planning from the department, because we know the numbers of children born each year. We should be able to plan ahead for need. And I think that's what's frustrating parents. We've heard from one parent in the Midlands who has applied to 16 schools for their child, their son aged 6, who should be going into senior infants in September, but is still in preschool because no place is available. And the CINO now says you must apply to mainstream schools, despite having a diagnosis saying that they must have access to a special school place. So Taoiseach, these are the stories of desperately frustrated parents, and I think what we need to hear is a sense from your government that there will be forward planning put in place to ensure that there will be enough staff hired and enough places made available that every child who needs a special school or a special class will have access to that.
There will have to be forward planning, and that will be made clear to the agencies and to the department, and there will have to be proper preparation, over the next number of years, looking at the demographics, looking at the need, and making sure that there's a much more seamless system for parents and for children with additional needs. That's the bottom line as far as I'm concerned. Every child is entitled to an education. No school can be saying no. There has to be far more proactivity out there as well. The NCSC is conscious of this. I've made this clear. And there will be ongoing meetings that I will be convening with the relevant ministers and agencies to make sure that the increased demographic issues that will arise. We have an increasing population. The census is very clear. There's been quite a significant change between the last two censuses in terms of those indicating both within the general population disability, but particularly children with additional needs. And I'm not satisfied with the way things are now. I'm going to be very open with you in that regard.
Thank you,
and prepared to
we now move to the social.
Like, share, and subscribe, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.